So how's the Rolls-Royce argument going, George? That is that the opposition says the government wants us to drive around in Rolls-Royces and we really can't afford that.
It's a very interesting position we found in politics at the moment. The coalition say you can't have a gold-plated NBN, and Julia Gillard says you can't have a gold-plated electricity system. So I'm going to flip a coin on this one, and it comes out silver both ways. Neither of these arguments stack up. The coalition argument about the NBN is essentially that you could do the thing cheaper, so we'll give you a cut price model. Now, the NBN either works or it doesn't, and if you need to pay for it, you might have to pay for it. The question at the moment with the release of the slower than expected rollout and the slightly higher costs than expected is whether there are going to be enough homes in Australia that have actually got broadband, super fast broadband by the time of the next election for politicians on either side to be able to turn up in their living rooms and say, so how's it working out for you? At the moment, this thing is going a little slower than it should for Labor because the coalition may want to roll back the rollout, or they may want to rescind it after the next election. Their chances of doing it are actually a little better now, given what the NBN Co announced this week. There just simply aren't enough houses this thing has got traction in.
And the other political angle to that, Karen, is on the timing is will they have enough people have access to this to get any real political benefit at the time of the next election?
Well, that's right. I mean, I suppose it could work either way. Maybe they hope that the anticipation of getting it is enough to give them some support, and the people who've got it probably won't lose it under a coalition government, but the people who haven't got it may not get it. So, you know, maybe Labor would think that having people almost getting it, not quite getting it, is a good thing. I don't know. But as George says, you know, the rollout is a lot slower. The number of houses that will be covered are a lot fewer, or will be a lot fewer than they expected. I'm still not convinced that this is a big vote changer, though. I think people, it's not really going to change people's minds. I think the people who thought it was stupid probably still think it's stupid and expensive, and the people who think it's a good idea maybe are not necessarily concerned enough to vote alternatively by the blowout in the cost. I mean, you sort of expect these big infrastructure projects to blow out in cost and in time, so it's not a huge surprise.
Jacqueline, what was your take on this week, given that they the essential point they had to announce was a cost blowout? Not a blowout, but an increase of 3.9%.
Well, full points to Senator Conroy for trying to control the language, because he was very, very keen on insisting that it wasn't a blowout, it wasn't even an increase, it was what he called a pull-through, which is a creative use of political language, if ever I've heard one. Look, I think Australians are still pretty open-minded about this project because it has been an ongoing thing. Whether or not the government sold it very well, I don't know, because I think the overwhelming thing in everyone's minds is it's really, really expensive. I mean, it's hugely expensive, and that's all we hear about it. So headlines saying it's going to be even more expensive, and by this stage, probably a lot of people have lost count of how many billions. A lot of general voters, I mean.
And yet they do talk about a 7% dividend eventually, after 30 years or something.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I mean, and even under the coalition plans to sort of roll it back or to change the structure of it, it's still, you know, hopefully going to be an asset that actually makes money for us one day.
At some point, Barry, and Labor have made this point and they forget to make it and they make it again, and we see this also in electricity where there is an argument staring you in the face and you forget to make it for 2 years and then suddenly there's a penny drop. Steve Conroy is aware of one of the reasons he did this was to structurally separate Telstra. So to actually have the network in government hands, so to have the lines in government hands and Telstra be able to provide service with everybody else. So Telstra wouldn't be able to hijack its competitors in terms of access to the network. So I'd still prefer to hear this argument, because at some point the nation-building card plays best when you say, well, we're doing this on behalf of the country. It's going to cost us a little bit in the short term because we would never trust the private sector to do this thing, because there was this thing called Telstra in private hands and it ripped everybody else off. They might think about it next week and then they might go back to some other dog whistle later on this on the technology side, but you never know.